What if I told you there's a tiny, barren rock in the middle of Africa's largest lake, and it sparked a military standoff and created a billion-dollar industry? A place so unbelievably crowded it makes Manhattan look spacious. And the weirdest part? There's a beautiful, lush, green island sitting completely empty just a stone's throw away. Okay, let's get into the absolutely wild story of Migingo Island. So this is where it gets really weird. Take a look. On one side, you've got Migingo. It's basically half an acre of jagged stone, not a speck of soil. But it's packed with almost 1,000 people. Then, literally 200 meters away, is Usingo. Bigger, flatter, covered in gorgeous green grass, and home to exactly 0 people. I mean, it makes absolutely no sense, right? And that's the big question we're going to tackle. Why on earth would anybody choose to cram themselves onto this tiny, uncomfortable rock when a perfect paradise is sitting right there? Well, the answer is this crazy mix of ancient superstition and very modern greed. To even start to understand this, we've got to go back, way back, to local legends. Because the first piece of this puzzle isn't about money or politics. Nope, it's about demons. You see, for generations, fishermen in this area have believed in something called the Usingo curse. The stories all say that the beautiful green island is haunted. The evil spirits will curse anyone who tries to live there with sickness, or worse, they'll drag you down into a watery grave. So, back in 1991, when the first fishermen were looking for a home base, they looked for the closest spot they believed was spiritually safe. And that place was the barren, jagged, but most importantly, demon-free Rock of Migingo.
But, being safe from spirits? That's only half the story. The reason this little rock became so incredibly valuable, so crowded, and so fought over, well, that has nothing to do with folklore. It has everything to do with a massive economic gold rush happening just beneath the waves.
Now, to get why this matters so much on a national level, you just have to look at the lake itself. Lake Victoria is huge, but Kenya, they only control this tiny 6% sliver. That makes every single inch of their water, especially resource-rich water, unbelievably precious. And the resource that everyone is fighting over? It's this fish, the Nile perch. Now, it was introduced back in the 50s, and yeah, it totally wrecked the local ecosystem, but it also created an insane economic boom. And it just so happens the deep, cool waters around Migingo are the best fishing grounds for it in the entire lake.
But here's the kicker. The meat from the fish is valuable, sure, but that's not the grand prize. Oh no. The real treasure, the thing driving this entire billion-dollar industry, is one single, small organ inside that fish.
It's called the swim bladder. It helps the fish with buoyancy, but that's not what people care about. When you take it out and dry it, it becomes this huge delicacy in Asian markets. They literally call it white gold, and that is why fishermen will put up with the insane conditions on Migingo. And this is what it's all about, $1,000 per kilogram. That one number explains everything. It's why this rock is worth fighting over, and it's why so many people are willing to live practically on top of each other just to get a piece of that action. So you can see where this is going, right? You've got a billion-dollar resource in a tiny patch of water claimed by 2 different countries. It was only a matter of time before that invisible line on an old map led to a very, very real conflict. This whole thing didn't just pop up overnight. It started with a colonial border drawn way back in 1926 that, honestly, nobody really cared about. Then, fishermen settled the island in '91 to be safe from spirits. But by 2008, once everyone realized the value of that white gold, a tense military standoff between Kenya and Uganda kicked off. And really, the whole mess comes down to this. That old map from 1926 is super vague. The island of Migingo sits almost directly on this fuzzy, poorly defined borderline, which means both Kenya and Uganda can make a pretty good case that the island belongs to them.
So let's bring it all together. You've got ancient folklore pushing people onto this rock. You've got a billion-dollar fish keeping them there, and you've got an old colonial border dispute turning it into a geopolitical hotspot. Put all that together, and you get what some people have called Africa's smallest war. This quote from someone who visited just paints the picture perfectly. Just try to imagine it. You're walking through these incredibly tight alleys, and you see armed police from 2 different nations just coexisting in this permanent, weary truce. All on a rock you can walk across in 30 seconds. It's surreal.
So how do they keep from actually going to war?
Well, the standoff eventually cooled down into this really fragile agreement. It's a bizarre compromise. Basically, both countries co-manage the island. They both have police there, and they both get to tax the fishing profits. It is an uneasy peace for sure, but for now, it's holding.
And all this pressure from the people, the money, the politics, it's completely transformed the island. It's been called a metallic turtle, this shell of corrugated iron shacks that covers every single square inch of rock. It's not just a camp, it's a full-on micro-city with its own pubs, pharmacies, brothels, the whole shebang.
And get ready for this, because this comparison it's mind-blowing. We think of a place like Manhattan as one of the most densely populated places on Earth. Now look at Migingo. It's not even in the same league. The population density there is one of the most extreme you'll find anywhere on the entire planet.
So it all leaves you wondering, doesn't it? The story of Migingo is just this perfect, tiny example of the forces that shape our world. What do you think is ultimately more powerful? A deeply held spiritual belief, a massive economic incentive, or a political line drawn on a map a century ago? On Migingo Island, all three are locked in this constant, fascinating battle.